Hey there, folks. Once again, we are back here at the Entrepreneur Circle. Thank you so much for tuning in and
for listening. Please like, love, share this show with all of your friends and family because, you know, we love you like family. So today on our show in studio, live in the
On Air Brands podcast studio is the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Tom Zeeb. Welcome to the show, brother.
Thanks, Eric. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I just want to give everyone a quick primer, and then we're going to jump right into your story. Tom Zeeb is an author. He's a speaker. He's, of course, a real estate entrepreneur, crushing real estate and wholesaling. And he's an adventurer, which I'd love to get into, get a little bit more details.
I'm on your site, and I see you with a bunch of cool gear, climbing mountains, you know, just doing just amazing stuff that most people, I'm sure, would love to be doing themselves. So I met Tom. This is a really cool thing. This is the first time this has happened. I met Tom. I knew of Tom. He's on the circuit. He's one of the speakers for our national RIA, and he came to our meeting at SJ RIA, and he crushed. Right, he just wowed and amazed and dazzled the audience there. And I often have dinner with our speakers afterwards, like we did last night, but I don't extend an invite to the studio the next day. This is the first time it's happened.
I'm flattered.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. So love that you're here. Thanks again. So your company, you have many things going on, but Traction Real Estate Mentors is one. You recently put out a book called How to Correctly
Flip Houses for Profit. And you also have a podcast, and the name of your show again is?
The Get Traction Podcast.
The Get Traction Podcast. I love the consistency with your branding. It's so key. So, brother, let's get into your story a little bit. What I like to tee up as, what was that radioactive bug that bit you and turned you into the superhero Tom Zeeb?
I think the bug was a poisonous bug. I think it was called the 9-to-5 JOB.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. When that bit me, I knew I needed to cure that infection.
I like that. That's good. That's a good twist. Yeah, we talked a little about this last night, if you want to touch. So the people at home, and I'll tell you, the audience, some of the audience out there,
they're in their W-2s, they're in a 9-to-5, and they often connect with my story as well, being in 9-to-5, or it was really like 9-to-9 or 8-to-10 or whatever it was.
9-to-5.
Yeah, and building other people's businesses and helping to generate their wealth. So the people out there who want to maybe start their own thing or be inspired to create their own thing. So what was it for you that made you take the leap?
It was a near-death experience. It was a drowning. I was frustrated in the job. I liked it at first. After a couple of years, I didn't like it. And I felt like, wait a minute, I went to college for this? And, things are supposed to be better, and offices are supposed to be fun, and things ought to be awesome, and they weren't. It bothered me. But I didn't know any way out. So you do what most people do when they don't feel good about something. They go spend way too much money and try to live a life for a week or two on a vacation. I saved up my 2 weeks off. I went on a big adventure trip to India with a bunch of buddies. I couldn't afford it, but what I put it all on credit cards. It was stupid, right? Making my credit card debt worse. Went to India, went whitewater rafting. I was so excited. It was awesome. I was finally out of the house, out of the office, out of the country, just everything fantastic. It's high adventure. I felt like a overgrown Indiana Jones, right? It was everything you dreamt of growing up. I'm finally doing it. This is fantastic. That was until we went through a Class 5 rapid, and I went flying off the side of the boat. Whoa. And underwater.
Wait, so Class 5, for those, I'm not familiar, what's a Class 5? How intense is that?
They rank rapids 0 through 6.
Like earthquakes?
Yeah, it goes from bathwater to impassable. 6 is impassable.
6 is impassable, which is
you're
at a 5.
Yeah, I was at a 5, which is probably, they probably label that as you shouldn't try.
Right.
But hey, there had been a lot of rain that year. The captain said, look, there's been a lot of rain this season. You really need to be careful in this next rapid. Stay on the boat, which, of course, didn't happen. And I went whoosh, flying, and then I'm underwater.
Oh my
God. Sucked down, and you don't know which way's up or down. You're tumbling and turning. There's bubbles everywhere, bouncing in the rocks. I've got a helmet on, got a life vest on, but you still don't know which way's up. And what if you get pinned down by water? What if you smash your face against a rock?
Yeah.
Or break a leg or break a neck? So as I was starting to black out, and my vision was getting narrower because I needed to breathe and I wasn't out of the water, I basically got angry. I was mad at myself for, one, treating life like a dress rehearsal.
Wow.
I had to realize it's not a dress rehearsal. You don't know how long you have. Nothing's promised. Well, I'm up a promise. At this point, I'm going, I don't even know if the next 5 minutes is promised to me. And that irritated me. But I was extremely angry and frustrated that I hadn't done anything, hadn't done what I wanted to do in life, didn't feel like I had any meaning or impact, and certainly had no money. I said, oh, man, if I get out of this, things are going to be different. I popped to the surface. And I turned around, and there was a raft full of my buddies laughing hysterically at me. What are buddies for, right? Guys love to punch each other in the gut when you're, kind of kick you when you're down. Yeah. And they're all laughing hysterically. Eric, I've never lived it down.
Oh my
The story
God. They
comes
still
up
bust your
every
balls.
time I'm with these buddies. Yeah.
Meanwhile, they have no idea how terrified, how angry, wow.
Yeah. I came out of the wall. I came out of the river feeling reborn. Like, all right, there's something that's going to change, and I'm getting laughed at.
Yeah.
But of course, when I got back home, I was back in the job, chained to the desk, drowning again, this time
Wow.
metaphorically, but
Love
in
it.
debt. I had 113 grand in debt.
Jesus. Wait, before we get into your debt, because that is
Yeah.
drowning.
Yeah.
I love the metaphor. How long were you underwater for? Did they tell you?
No, a couple of minutes.
Yeah. That's crazy that they were
A couple
laughing.
of minutes. I mean, it
I
feels like, you know how it is, right? When
Yeah.
you're in a dramatic, you remember every split second.
Exactly.
And so
Felt
it
like
seems
an
like
hour.
time took forever, yeah.
Yeah. Wow. So, okay, so you came back, you're in debt. Yeah.
Came back massively in debt. Because at this point I said, things are going to change, things are going to be different. I came back and they weren't different. And I couldn't make them different right away. And it was frustrating. But I started thinking about things differently. I'm like, all right, wait a minute. All this credit card debt, all this college debt, all this car debt, all this apartment debt, what does it add up to? It's 113 grand. What the heck do I do to get out of this? Will I walk into my boss and ask for a $113,000 raise? Come on, when's the last time that's happened? Do I switch jobs and magically make $113,000 more?
Yeah.
No. So it was a dilemma. Like, what do I do without a gun or white powder? All right, to get out of 113 grand, how can I pay that off quickly?
Right.
Well, a friend of mine hands me a copy of Robert Kiyosaki's Rich Dad Poor Dad book.
Yeah.
Which
the purple
probably
pill.
the purple pill. It's like
Yeah.
everybody's read it, right?
Yeah.
It hit me like a ton of bricks, and it brought me back to the frustration I had when I was drowning.
Yeah.
But this time it gave me the answer, kind of. It didn't give me any detail, but gave me the answer. Great book, but there's no detail in it. It says to go and buy rental properties, cash flowing income properties. Fantastic. I don't even own my own house, but I knew nothing. I've done nothing but read this one particular book. So it's, okay, let's do it. And I had handed the book to my sister. She read it and was in a similar situation and, digging a debt hole and everything. And we said, this is going to be the way out. She snapped too. So we ran out and bought a 6-unit building in Brooklyn, New York.
Wow.
In a
That was your
neighborhood called
first deal.
Bed-Stuy, Bedford-Stuyvesant. That was
You
our
didn't-
first deal.
You didn't go into a single family.
Oh, no.
You didn't go into a duplex. You went to a 6
That would have been
unit.
too smart. We bought a 6-unit building.
Wow.
Because, hey,
Wow.
Eric, what could go wrong?
Everything.
What could possibly
Wow. So
go
take
wrong?
us there, man. I want to hear this.
Everything was
Yeah.
wrong with it. Right from the get-go. Nothing was right. Nobody was paying. Like from the day of settlement, I should have been a little suspicious when they couldn't produce their income statement for the building.
Mhm.
And all my settlement attorney says, well, honey, some people are not as clinical with their paperwork as you are.
Right.
Like now, if only I had been as clinical with my due diligence, I should have hit the eject button and gotten out.
Wow.
Like I had all these warning signs, and yet you just figure you're having cold feet. Oh, come on, how bad can it be?
Yeah.
It was bad.
Whoa.
The last time either my sister and I went to the property, it was my sister. She went to try to collect some rent because nobody was paying. We had 6 very professional tenants that knew the laws, knew how to play the game.
Yeah.
And my sister tried to collect some rent, and one of the tenants got really mad at her. I'm so sick and tired of you coming around here asking for money. Oh, you mean like collecting rent? I mean, heaven forbid you don't live on your own. And this tenant reached out and took my sister's head and smacked it into the wall.
Wow. Oh my God. Is she okay?
She's fine. But at which point I said to her, she's fine now. I'm just scared senseless at the time.
Yeah.
And I said, you know what, Tracy, we're done. Forget about it. Let it go. Let the bank have it. Screw it all. I'm done. We made a wrong turn. Now, but rather than run and hide, I lucked out, right? We felt we were drowning again. Now we're drowning in this new mortgage. That's that constant theme of drowning. Drowning in this mortgage, drowning with these tenants that don't pay, drowning in the legal issues of trying to get anyone to pay. You can't kick them out, right? I mean, New York City is not terribly landlord friendly.
Right.
So I lucked out. During that time, I had discovered my local REIA, REIA, Real Estate Investors Association.
In New York.
Down in D.C. I live in D.C.
Okay.
I'm originally from Buffalo, New York.
Gotcha.
My sister lives in Manhattan. I live in Washington, D.C.
Okay.
So, but we had invested up there. So I'm back in D.C. I said, I had found these things called REIAs, and I show up, and there's a room full of investors, many of whom are landlords, many of whom are rehabbers, all hungry for deals, doing deals, networking. I'm like, wow. And they had these Saturday training classes, and I'd start going to them. So I had a newfound confidence that there was a better way out. And that's what I followed.
Yeah.
When I kept marketing closer to home, got a great little townhouse under contract. That turned into my first successful deal.
So I'm so glad that you shared this story, because you experienced something life-threatening, pretty much, and then you decided to exit, but you didn't shy away or get scared off and never come back. You said, I trust this process. I believe that it's going to work, and I'm just going to keep plowing forward.
I know there's a way out, but I didn't find the way there. But I still know there's a way out. I just, it's like being in a maze. I chose the wrong path. So you go back and you try the other option. Yeah. And luckily I didn't, because, at this point I've been unemployed for 19 years. It's fantastic, right? I'd much rather be an entrepreneur on my own. And I tasted that then. I wanted that freedom that I felt on the trip in India, but I wanted it permanently. Yeah. And that desire was big enough that it kept me going.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's amazing. So you came in as an investor with a buy and hold strategy, and then you discovered that this wholesaling thing, I'm going to give it a shot. So take us through that path, because you're the first I've ever spoken to that made that into a full-time, almost 20-year career. Right?
Is that right?
Yeah, because usually people, they do it for a little while.
It's a stepping stone.
It's a stepping stone to I'm just going to be a buy and hold guy forever and ever and ever. I'm going to get into multifamily syndication. It's always like the next big, gigantic thing.
Yeah, and so I'm thinking of the reason for that. And it's okay, right? There's nothing wrong with, nothing wrong with wholesaling as all you do, but people seem to view it only as a stepping stone. Nothing wrong with it being a stepping stone, but there's also nothing wrong with just focusing on it. Remember, I was burned badly as a landlord with rentals. I wanted nothing to do with that whole realm.
Right.
Then I had come to realize that I wasn't any good as I was not any good as a rehabber. So that's not my thing either. I can't fix anything. I can't swing a hammer. I can't hang drywall, run piping, run cabling. Wow. I'm good at marketing, and I'm good at negotiation. Yeah. And when I got really good at those things, I realized that at my REIA group, there's a room full of people who are landlords or who are rehabbers. But they are so busy being landlords or so busy being rehabbers that they don't focus on their marketing or the negotiation. So every time they do a deal, they're back to square one. And they have to start over. So if I could just provide deals for them, they would buy them happily, pay me a wholesale fee, an assignment fee, to take my deal on a silver platter, take it over, because they didn't have to do the part they don't like anyway. Right. They don't like the marketing and negotiation. They like the rehabbing, or they like the landlording. So I would let them step in at exactly that point, and that's how I started making a fortune. You get addicted to. I paid off the $113,000 in debt without a gun and without white powder. I paid it off by flipping contracts, not even flipping the property, flipping the contract. My legal right to buy it, I sold it to other investors.
Mm-hmm. So this is amazing. So you went in and you really identified, what I love about this really, and I want to highlight for folks listening, is you were very self-aware. You understood your strengths and you doubled down on your strengths. You weren't trying to be a flipper or trying to be something that you felt, these aren't really leveraging my superpower, which is the power of negotiation, the power of, taking deals down. And you were able to really harness that and then find the audience that didn't have that superpower and then let them leverage you for that, which is absolutely amazing. So can you, as a business owner building businesses, how did you begin that process of not just making it about a one-man operation? Like, you built an entire team and company and systems and this gigantic juggernaut of a machine. How did that happen?
Although it's lean and trim, particularly on the employee front. So this ties in with why people think they can only use wholesaling as a stepping stone, only use assignment of contract as a stepping stone and not stay in it. And you wanted to know, why am I in an adventure? I love adventure. Yeah. And what I realized early on is I almost took a wrong turn for me personally by becoming a landlord. I almost took a wrong turn for me personally, for my strengths and weaknesses, trying to be a rehabber. I'm much better off as just a wholesaler. And the big reason was it let me keep my lifestyle as the center point of my business. I put lifestyle at the center, and I build a business around that. And then I build a marketing plan around that, and everything funnels inward towards that center. My marketing plan supports the business. My business plan supports my lifestyle. So what I find is most people don't focus that intently on it. So I got very good at saying, does this meet my end goal or not? I've got classic entrepreneurial ADD, right? Oh, there's a bright, shiny object. There's something I want to go after. And I'm always tempted, always. Look, I'll be very open about it. I'm tempted, I should do that, and I should do that, and I should do. And then the more, and all I do, I go through the same process every time. I start to think it through, and I go, no, I'm much happier just wholesaling houses.
Yeah, wow. Kudos to you for staying disciplined and not letting those shiny objects, entice you and distract you from the path. So for no listener left behind here, can you give them, the 1 to 2 sentence description of case they don't know what wholesaling is?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah.
In wholesaling, I market for motivated sellers. They contact me.
Yeah,
right?
Meaning people who just
they have
need
a
to
problem.
get out of their they have a problem, they need it solved.
They need it. They need to sell more than they want to sell. Even they're motivated because there's a problem in their life. Something's wrong. It's a divorce. They're a tired landlord. They're getting old. They've inherited a property. It could be anything. I look for a problem. I market to problems. They reach out to me because I'm saying, look, I can buy this house quickly. We'll take care of it. And then in my mind, I'm either going to sell out my position in the contract. I'm going to assign it, sell it out to either a rehabber or a landlord, and who's either going to fix it up or hang on to it. So I negotiate a great deal, put it under contract. So I have the legal right to buy this property. That's super important that you have the legal right to do it, because I'm not a licensed agent. I don't need to be because I'm on the contract. Then I turn around, I go to my buyer's list, full of rehabbers and landlords. And so let's say it's a rehab deal, it needs to be fixed up. I would take this property that I have under contract, and I'm the buyer, right? The seller's the seller, I'm the buyer. And I shop it around and say, which of my rehabbers are interested? They go look at it, they run their numbers, and those who want it tell me they want it at a price higher. I've told them the price is higher than what I have it under contract for. I then assign my contract using an assignment contract. Effectively just says, hey, anywhere you see Tom's name as buyer, swap it out for the new guy or the new gal. And that's it. I sell my position in the contract for a profit, the good old American way.
Awesome. So perfect description. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
So I wanted to highlight something when I work with wholesalers, and I imagine since you're one of the best in this part of the industry, they often fudge the numbers or make them look so dreamy and magical. Only needs this amount of rehab and it will be worth this amount of money once it's done.
And then they wonder why it doesn't sell.
Right. So what do you do when you you get something under contract and then you share that pro forma, you share those numbers with investors, landlords, or whoever? How realistic, or what's your process?
My numbers have to be realistic. Yeah. They have to be the real numbers. Usually what happens is a so-called wholesaler, quote unquote, they're trying to squeeze it to make it into a deal when it's not. They didn't do a good enough job negotiating. They probably didn't do a good enough job marketing for somebody with enough pain to give them the price they want. So instead they're trying to creatively make it into a deal. It's not going to sell.
Yeah.
Because the people who have to put their money where their mouth is are not the rehabbers, the landlords, they're the buyers. They're not going to part with their money for something that's not really a deal.
Yeah.
So people screw it up because they don't know. So what I do is I put out what I say the price is, and I back it up. This is a negotiation tip. You want the power of the written word. I back up my statement of price of what the value is. I back that up with comps, with comparables from the multiple listing service, showing what other sold properties have sold for at that price. Then I take my repair estimate and I back that up with photos. I send all my buyers a giant photo gallery of all the photos I've taken during the inspection. And so they can, come on, most guys, they can look at you send them 20, 30, 40 photos. They know if your repair estimate is right. Now, it doesn't have to be down to the penny, but it's horseshoes and hand grenades. It's got to be close enough to be accurate. And what I try to be is I'm very conservative on my comps, and I'm very liberal on my repair estimates. That way they look at it and they go every time. And then you start to get a reputation over time that, hey, Tom's numbers are good.
Yeah.
That makes a difference.
I love it. So what's your usual criteria in terms of like, okay, so market value is this. I usually don't go anything above this percentage in terms of like, I usually look for a 60% discount or anything below that. Or
it fluctuates depending on the neighborhood or the area or the city that you're in. So
in
typically I'm looking for 70% minus repairs.
Yeah, 70% off.
Off the after repaired value. Okay,
Amazing.
What's it worth all fixed up? Wow. Remember, there's a value play.
A lot of meat on the bone.
Oh, yeah, it's a lot of meat on the bone. That's what my guys want to buy it. They want to buy it 70. Some want to buy it 75. I got a couple people in certain neighborhoods that'll go 77, 78%. That's odd. Some people, if they're very cautious, conservative, they'll pull down at maybe 65, 67, 68%. The answer for the listeners out there is to ask your buyers, what do they buy at? They'll tell you.
Right.
And you can calculate that out and figure that out.
Yeah.
So yes, there's a reason they'll go that deep. It's not, remember, that's not a discount off of what the current value is.
Right.
It's the value of what the property would be worth once it's all fixed up.
Yeah.
So there's a value play there, because if you put 20 grand into the property and that raises the value $80,000, that's a value play. You put 20,000 in and you gained an extra 60 grand by making it worth 80 more. So you have to pay attention to that. There's got to be a value play on it. Otherwise, it's not going anywhere.
Yeah. Can you walk us through a typical sort of, using easy numbers, rounded up, 100,000 or 200,000, whatever it is. And your
easy numbers are good.
Yeah, easy numbers for our listeners so they could follow. But can you walk us through a typical good deal that you find, you negotiate, you sit down with the seller, you tell them, hey, you want to go dip your toes in the sand? I can help you get there. Yeah. I'll take this problem off your hands. You could just literally walk away and I'll take care of everything in here. And handshake. But, and the market, too, so people can sort of get some context.
Yeah. Let's say somebody reaches out to you and they're they're getting old. Let's say that's the scenario. They want to sell it, they're getting old. Usually, it's a female. Usually, she's in her early 80s. I talk about my stereotypical 82-year-old seller. Yeah. It's because husband's passed away. It's just her. Kids are long gone, not in the house. The house hasn't been renovated in, years, since 1964. So it needs some work. It's not going to sell for top dollar on the open market. It would need to be rehabbed first and made to look bright and shiny and lovely, what the modern buyer expects. So she happens to have no mortgage because she was responsible, right?
Free and clear.
Yeah, she's free and clear. She 30-year mortgage meant you pay the thing off in 30 years. You don't refinance it 17 times in the last 4 years and suck every penny of equity out of it. That's what the kids do these days.
Yeah.
That's not what she does. So if it's free and clear, Erik, what kind of offer can she take from me?
Anything.
Yeah, literally anything, right?
Anything.
Yeah. She has no restrictions, so she could take anything. And most of the time, it's you're 80-something years old. I mean, God willing, you live another 20 years, but
it's really what
how much
she
money do
pass
you need?
Off to her heirs, her loved ones.
Well, that's what she. But they all have an issue. Like, so you have to dig as you start to pinpoint what the problem is in the negotiation. Ask the questions, drill down to what is it that she's after, and she'll tell you. Oh, I need money for the nursing home. I need money for my retirement home. I want to give some money to the grandkids. I want to put the grandkids through school. They'll always tell you, and then you build a solution. You package up a solution that works. Then you have to persuade her to take it.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. So, I want to get into negotiations a little bit because it's so powerful, and I know you really crushed this last night. One of our favorite books here is Never Split the Difference, right? So a lot of good strategies and tips in that book from, stories.
Gotcha.
Right. So, so let's do that, man. Tell us a story.
I've never read it, so
about one of your best negotiations. Yeah,
sure.
and what that deal was. What did that look like?
Okay. I've got a good one that has a lot of different layers to it.
Yeah, awesome.
Right? So negotiation comes in, motivation for motivated sellers comes in layers. So you'll start to realize that the more layers you have, the more flexible and motivated somebody is. So I had a woman respond to one of my postcards as an out-of-state absentee owner. And it turned out that there was a lot more going on. When I started talking to her and start pinpointing the problem, she says, hey, I've been hanging on to your card for a couple of months. Oh, really? I mean, she knows about me. I didn't know about her yet, really. And it was just, it's a sleeper cell out there waiting to make me money as soon as it goes off, but it hadn't happened yet. Yeah. So what have you been waiting for? She goes, well, I've been waiting for the probate judge to sign off on my ability to sell this property. Oh, interesting. Someone passed away. Oh, well, I'm so sorry to hear that. Who passed away? And it was my husband passed away.
Oh.
She might have used less friendly terms. It's like, oh, interesting. She goes, yes. The thing is, we were getting divorced. But in the state she was in, divorce takes a year. You have to be legally separated for a year before they'll issue a divorce decree.
Okay.
During that time of the legal separation, he passed away, leaving her with the house. I mean, she goes, I'm still his wife. I've inherited a mess, an absolute mess. Right? So there's another layer. It's probate, it's inherited property. She's not living in it. She's out of state. She said, I went to an agent to try to sell it, and they said, well, you're going to have to fix it up first because it doesn't look that nice inside. So she hires a crew, a contractor to get out there and rehab it, who she foolishly paid up front.
Oh, wow.
And guess what happened?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Where is he?
Exactly. She goes, he ran off with my money.
Wow.
She goes, now I'm stuck. And, when I had gone over there, carpet was ripped out, toilets were ripped out. There was something. It just was, it was a joke.
Okay.
So it clearly needed rehab. She goes, I'm out of money. I'm falling behind on payments. So that's a pre-foreclosure scenario. Basically, one thing after another. It's wrong, it's wrong, it's wrong, it's wrong.
Jeez.
And she said, Tom, can you help me, please? Absolutely. Yeah. So I've pinpointed her problem. I package up a solution that would work for her, get the house out from under her, give her a little money to be able to move on with life. And it clearly has a value play there. So I put it under contract. Now, I don't want to do the rehab myself. So I reach out to my buyers list. Had a number of buyers come and look at it. I chose one of the 4 offers that I had from buyers. And I said, this guy's the strongest. I know he's got the cash in the bank because I've asked to see his bank account statement. This is a cash offer, so this thing will settle as soon as the title work's done. I made a $25,000 assignment fee.
Wow.
Okay, I sell out my position, my rights to buy it.
Yeah.
All the rights and responsibilities in my contract, I assign to another buyer for $25,000.
Wow.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Now, is my buyer upset that I made $25,000?
Well, it depends what's he making.
He's making a killing. Oh, he's making a killing.
Yeah.
So he's making exponentially more, but as he should. He has more risk.
Yeah.
Right? He's got to spend a few months rehabbing it. He's got to wait for the resale. He makes usually at least 4 times more than me.
That's a huge assignment. From what I'm accustomed to here in the Trenton, New Jersey, Central New Jersey area, unless you're going into the larger homes. So this sounds like it's probably a 4.
Here's the thing. This is the Washington, D.C. metro area, so our prices are absurd.
Yeah.
And some parts of the country have matchingly absurd prices, and some parts of the country don't. So tweak it. When I work in lower priced areas, my assignment fees tend to be just shy of 10 grand, sometimes 12 grand.
Okay.
They might drop to 8. They might expand to 15, but it's tucked in right around that 10 to 12 grand sweet spot.
Yeah. How much rehab did you guys estimate for that particular project?
On that one, the rehab was about 43 to 45,000.
43 to 4. Okay.
New kitchen, a couple new full baths, a half bath, paint, flooring, carpet, sprucing it up.
Gotcha.
Yeah, a full rehab.
Yeah. So what do you remember how much it retailed for? Like what that flipper sold it for?
I'm trying to remember exactly what it was. I want to say it was in the around 420, 430.
420. So about 430 he sold it for, and you picked it up. You got it under contract for
225.
Wow.
Yeah.
So sick.
Yeah, I got on the kind of 225.
Wow.
I made 25, so my rehabber paid 250.
Yeah.
Puts in his 40
Mhm,
to 45 grand, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And makes
Yeah.
a extremely handsome profit.
Absolutely.
So guess who buys from me all the time?
Yeah.
Same buyer, right? It's the same buyer.
Yeah,
Why
yeah,
wouldn't
yeah.
you? I'm serving him
Right.
a deal on a silver platter.
Yeah.
He doesn't have to worry about marketing, doesn't have to get bogged down in negotiation,
Exactly.
doesn't actually have to get to know his seller. He can just buy from me, and I can keep his
Right.
crews busy.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a
yeah.
beautiful
Wow.
setup.
Yeah. It's such a
See why I stick with wholesaling?
it's a good system. Yeah. Especially if you got it down, and like you said, you just leveraging what you're really good at.
Yeah. And then I can run off on a trip and do the lifestyle I want to do. I can go drown myself.
Yeah, just
and
stay
not go
away
into
from
debt doing
the
it. Yeah,
level
stay away from
5
the rivers.
rapids.
That's my
awesome.
trick to staying alive.
That's awesome. So you're doing a lot of other things, right? So you put out a lot of great content. You have a lot of great programs to help people to do what you do or to be a part of what you do. You have video and coaching training, and you're putting out books. So which out of all of those things outside of the Traction Real Estate Mentors what's one of the next things that you focus on? Like,
Well, what happened was after a few years of doing successful deals, I had a student come to me. His name is Mikey. And Mikey came to me and said, hey, can you teach me what to do? I really need to learn. And, he had a harder time in life up to that point. He said, I want to be different. I got to do something. Can you show me how? I don't know. I haven't really thought about teaching anyone else. Well, when I watched what happened to this kid after I trained him, taught him everything I know about marketing, everything I know about negotiation, everything I know about contracts, control, and getting paid, he went crazy with it and did fantastic and turned his life around and then started turning his little town around. And the runoff effect from that and his constantly telling me about his successful deals and what it did to him in his life and his community, I went, wow, this teaching thing is actually really cool.
yeah.
And that's when I formalized it more. I said, all right, people have a desire to learn. I wanted to give them the tools I wished I would have had when I started out, rather than just having that one idea that I should go buy a cash flowing property, but not knowing how or what or why or any of the details. I've made sure I always put heavy duty how-to content into everything that I do. That's, to me, that's a defining factor.
Right, right. So you found that there was some satisfaction, some gratification, and fulfillment from helping Mikey, and then figuring out, wait a minute, I can do more of this for more people, because there's a ripple effect.
There is.
When you help one guy who's actually going to make a big impact, and you can keep creating more of those, it's just massive. So, so you have your training. What's that called again?
Traction Real Estate
Traction Real
Mentors.
Estate Mentors,
Yep. If you go to the tractionrealestatementors.com site, has a lot of video trainings. It also tells you about my live events. I have a podcast as well where we dig deep into the various aspects of what it takes. I have a lot of student interviews where we dig deep into what their deals have been. That's at tomzeeb.com. So it's Tom, Z as in zebra, EEB as in boy.
Do you also put that on like iTunes and Spotify?
Yeah, it's on
your-
iTunes, Spotify,
Gotcha.
SoundCloud.
Yeah.
It's downloadable.
Yeah, very cool. So you have that all out there for anybody who wants to find you and consume and be a part of what you're doing. I know you have some really cool programs and training this weekend.
Yes.
Here, it's part of our SJ RIA organization. But then talk a little bit about your book here, your bestseller too.
Yeah, the how to correctly flip houses for a profit. There's an operative word in that. And
I
it's
love how the
correctly.
image of the house is actually upside down.
Exactly. Which way
clever.
does it go?
That's clever.
What I wanted to do was get a concise book about the how-to process, and particularly how to correctly do it, because I travel across the country, and 7 or 8 times a year I do my one-day event in various places across America, like I'm doing here in New Jersey this weekend. In my one-day masterclass, I start to dig deep into what it takes to become a successful real estate investor, particularly a wholesaler. But honestly, you can use the techniques for rehabbing or landlording as well.
Right.
And what I wanted to do in the book, since I get so many questions from people and things that are just dead wrong, and they've been led astray, or they're not doing it right. So I really let me write a book about how to correctly do it. So what I put in here was a ton of knowledge about the overall process and how to get started correctly and really drill down deep. Now, what's interesting is a couple of my students read the book and got mad at me.
Why?
Well, they said, I can't believe you put all that in there. And they're like a $5 book. And I'm like, wait a minute, we paid. I said, guys, trust me. You
Yeah.
have the contracts, you have the marketing templates, you have more. But
Yeah.
they were shocked at I said, look, I want everything to be quality and everything to be deep because there's so much fluff,
Yeah.
so much junk out there these days. I want this to stand out and be different.
Yeah, it's funny because there's a wealth of knowledge that's shocking how much is shared through any just books in general, that people don't normally like. If you put dollars to words, like are worth millions, if not billions, or just priceless, like the Kiyosaki book. I mean, that's a priceless. That's a mind
Yes.
changes. It changed the world for me, and it's funny because you could put everything in your book here, which is called How to Correctly Flip Houses for Profit. But people will more likely want to sit down with you for a weekend rather
Sure.
than read the book.
Yeah, not everyone's
You
a
know?
reader.
Yeah, exactly. And they want to, because I know Kiyosaki talked about that cone of learning where, there's reading, which is it's at the bottom. And then at the very top, it's execution and actually experiencing it. But then somewhere around there is courses and actually going. That's why he created the cash flow game. Remember we were talking about last night, which was funny because I think I pointed that out to you was the Rich Dad Poor Dad book was specifically designed to sell that game,
Sure.
which I only recently found out, which is pretty wild because as you read it, you realize, oh yeah, wait a minute, he's
Yeah,
plugging
there's a whole
it
thing.
constantly. And it's funny, you don't realize there's a lot of books out there that are specifically designed to sell you a product or a service. Like I love this book called E-Myth, which I'm sure you probably
I've
know,
read that
Michael
years
Lee
ago,
Gerber.
yeah.
Yeah, he's in there selling his course. It's the courses, it's the online thing, it's everything. But it's there to help us, right? It's there to help you.
Yes, there's still great knowledge in it. And I built this the same way. There's
Yeah.
fantastic knowledge in here. Would I love for people to come to a one-day seminar with me? Absolutely, because I can
learn more.
Well, of course, I got 8 hours with you to dig deep and really get you through. The book lays out the whole model, particularly the 9 accelerators, the 9 things you need to focus on that get the business down good. And what we start to do at my one-day masterclass is dig deep into those 9. So we know where you're at, and you'll know where you're having issues. You'll know where you need to focus. And that kind of diagnostic test, so most people have never done that. So to understand what you personally need to focus on, what you're strong at, and what you're weak at, or what you're kind of so-so at, and knowing where to focus is extremely powerful and extremely valuable. But most people never sit down and do that. They just go,
Right. Yeah. One thing that we talked about while I was interviewing you on stage last night was accountability is really big for me because there's as we run that organization and that especially that meetup in Princeton, where we have a membership of 1,000 people, but typically 50 to 100 show up. I think we had about 50 or 60 last night, but is the accountability. A lot of people come to us and come to me personally and say, hey, I need your help. Can give you the picks and axes and the tools, but I'm not going to necessarily always hold you accountable because that's time, right?
Yeah.
You're going to require me all the time to constantly check in on you. So what do you do for your students and the people in your tribe to hold them accountable?
Yeah. It's interesting. Accountability, and people wonder why they're not successful because they're not accountable to themselves. Oftentimes, that's why, like I ask everyone, what is it that you're going to spend your money on? What's at the center? I told you lifestyle was at the center for me. I want to go climb a mountain. I want to go scuba dive on a shipwreck or in a cave. I want to do something exotic and fun. I want to spend time with my family. I want to spend time with my wife and kids. I want to have the time to do that. So I've got a really solid lifestyle goal at the center, and that drives me and helps keep me accountable. But if we break accountability down, most people have never thought about it. There's 3 levels of accountability. There's accountability to yourself, which is the easiest one to completely skip and ignore. Because you will always forgive yourself. You'll always say, "Oh, I'll do it tomorrow." You always put it off. And who's going to beat you up? Yourself? Not really. The second level of accountability is to a coach or a mentor, right? Somebody else. That's your accountability partner. But even that, sometimes like my students are less likely to let me down than they are themselves. But the most powerful is the third level of accountability. That's a group accountability. If you're accountable to a group. So what I try to do when I have students at my 3-day implementation boot camp is I said, look, you're accountable to yourself. You are also accountable to me. because I'm expecting you to go do great things. If you don't, yeah, I'm going to call you and beat you up on it. All right? I'm going to call you and try to hold you accountable. But, and I tell them all, I said, remember, we are here in a group. If there's 50 to 60 people in this room, I want you to stand up and commit to something in front of everybody.
I love it.
Because now, people get a little nervous, right? Because they know. They're only nervous. It's not, I mean, it's an intimate group. They've all gotten to know each other. So they're not nervous to say something in front of other people. They're nervous because they know this might be the first time ever in their lives they have to actually be serious about it.
Wow.
Because they might be able to disappoint themselves and get away with it. They might be able to disappoint me and get away with it. But, man, you start promising something in front of a group, they're very powerful. So what I like to do is keep all three things in play, and I can do that at my implementation boot camp.
Yeah. Oh, that's really powerful. That's really good stuff. Thank you for sharing that. I've learned it. I've learned something. I'm taking notes here. So let's talk a little bit about your adventure lifestyle, man. I want to hear one of your stories, two of your stories about some of your trips, some of the stuff you've been doing. You know, did you ever put your life in danger again? Close to close to that. Oh,
maybe. Things happen. I still like whitewater rafting.
Yeah.
Got into kayaking a little bit, where I'm the only man on the raft, which is good. And rapids, it doesn't bother me.
Yeah. That's like meditation, I imagine, right? You get out there, it's just you, nature.
It feels good.
The water.
It feels good. Yeah. What I like to do, and it's a lifestyle thing, I've got to make sure my business keeps moving. So I've also built my business to make sure that no matter what, I can run it from anywhere. Even if I can't see a property, I have a way of getting eyes, and I'll send somebody else and take a ton of photos, and then they can share the photos with me. And I can be on the phone anywhere in the world. My phone works all around the world with very few exceptions. Email, you can access it from all around the world. So when I focus my business on email and the phone, nobody knows where I am when I'm responding, right? I could be at the top of a mountain in Europe. I could be hanging out the back of a rickshaw in India. I could be scuba diving in the Far East. Yeah. And it's not going to make a difference to my business. And I wanted it that way, so that I've kept it going that way. So, I love scuba diving, and I love climbing mountains.
Yeah. What's one of the most places or things that you've accomplished that you're proud of, like climbing some specific
I did a big climb in Indonesia, and it was a volcano, Mount Rinjani, in Lombok, Indonesia, and that was an intensely rewarding but also intensely physical. It was a 2 a.m. wake-up call, and the Sherpas cooked breakfast and got you going at 3 a.m. in the dark.
In the dark,
yeah. Because you wanted to hit the summit at 6 a.m. You're basically right on the equator, so 6 a.m. is sunrise. You would watch this phenomenal sunrise from the peak of the mountain. So you had 3 hours on the summit strike, and the ground was nothing but volcanic ash.
Wow.
And so your boots your legs are sinking in every time. I've never had my heart beat so fast. I mean, it's extremely rough. Half the people on our team dropped out, couldn't make it, and I just kept going. It was take 1 step, 2 step, 3 steps, and then your heart was jumping out of your chest from the extreme. Plus, we'd come up from sea level as well, so it's a pure 11,500 feet elevation gain. And the oxygenation, everything else, and you're going, finally, keep going, and boom, you're at the top. And with just a few minutes, freezing cold, just a few minutes to spare, as you're watching the sunrise, and it was one of the most glorious sunrises of my life.
Wow,
fantastic!
That's amazing. Yeah, that's amazing.
Beautiful. And then of course you start to descend.
Yeah.
And you see, now that it's daylight, you see where you were, and you're going, oh, that's why the Sherpa said, don't go too far to the left or the right, because we were literally climbing up a ridge on the peak of a volcano, and you would fall down in the caldera. You'd slide down in one way, or you'd slide off the mountain the other. I went, that was pretty serious.
Jeez. I mean, were you guys harnessed or connected
No,
to anything?
non-technical climb.
What?
Which I prefer.
Yeah. Jeez. That's ballsy, man.
Oh, it was, I'll tell you, but gorgeous the entire time. Absolute gorgeousness. The weird thing is, for taking 3 hours to get up, and only took an hour to get back to the rim of the volcano, because downhill's a lot easier, and all that soft ash. You basically do these giant moon leaps, and you couldn't hurt yourself because you'd land on the ash. It was great.
How much were you carrying up the mountain?
I only carried a small pack.
Okay.
So all the this is maybe a good business lesson. All the heavy lifting was done by the Sherpas.
Ah.
So they carried all the food. They carried all the heavy weight. There were all these Sherpa teams with a stick across their shoulders and a bag on each side.
Brilliant.
And they carried all the heavy duty weights. I just basically had a small day pack with me.
Okay.
Which was interesting. When I go other backpacking, if I'm backpacking out west in the United States, it's self-supported, right? You have everything you need
No
on your
Sherpas.
back, and there's no Sherpas. But hey, overseas, Sherpas are good.
What's one of the most interesting meals that you've had while traveling?
Oh, I love to eat.
Yeah.
So eating to me is a big it's a big part of traveling.
Yeah.
I remember a meal there's a bunch of meals, but here's one particular one in Santiago in Chile. My wife and I walk into this restaurant in a market, and this very chubby, portly waiter comes up, and he's very happy, very terrific, very, very gregarious, and he watches me start eating. And then he brings me something else he wants me to try, and then something else he wants me to try. Then he comes out with this giant crab, holds the thing up, and goes, "Do you want me to cook this for you?" Yeah, it was a live crab, giant crab. I don't know from what part. It was this giant crab. He's holding it up by the claws, and he goes, "I will make this for you." And I didn't really realize what he meant by that. He literally brought an open flame
In front of
burner
you.
thing in front of me, sat there, cooked it, shucked it,
Whoa,
pulled all the meat out,
whoa.
and was serving it to me, and I kept eating it, and we kept eating it. My wife and I basically canceled what our plans were for the afternoon, and we sat there and kept eating and eating. And this guy, I'm not the biggest guy. I know this guy was amazing. He goes, "You're eating as much as I can eat." He goes, "I could see you love life." And he just kept bringing out more great Chilean wine.
Wow.
And whatever. I mean, it was a decadent day of an awesome meal. That's a favorite meal. Also, one time with one of my closest friends, who I love traveling and adventure with, we were in Sicily, and we had gone up to the little town where Godfather was filmed.
Okay.
Fort de Zagra. And we're sitting there. This is where the wedding scene in The Godfather was, right? There's nobody there anymore. Barely anyone lives in the town. Kids don't want to live there. They all want to live in the city and go to a disco. So they don't want to be in a mountain town. So there's one bus a day that goes in, and one in the morning, and then it leaves, and then one comes in the afternoon. So we took the morning bus in, and we had to make the afternoon bus out. So we go to this one restaurant in town that's open. I had some of the absolute best gnocchi of my life.
Really?
The gnocchi was fantastic. The sauce was fantastic. Now, we barely had any time before the bus, and the restaurant had taken a little time getting in there. We're sitting there eating, and suddenly the bus is leaving and heading down the hill.
No.
I don't speak Italian very well at all.
Yeah.
My buddy's fluent. He jumped out of his chair, ran out into the street, and is flagging the bus down, telling them, wait. I'm sitting there in the restaurant trying to shovel every last gnocchi in my mouth because it's so freaking good. And one of my few regrets in life is I left 3 or 4 of those gnocchi on the plate because I had to go because, now the bus driver is yelling. It's very Italian, right? Everyone's blowing up, hands are waving, voices
Plus
are
you got to
raised.
pay, get it
I got to
all
pay,
done.
make sure to get I'm just throwing euros down on the table line. Let's get the hell out of here.
Yeah. I'm sure you've had dreams of finishing that plate.
Yes. I've never had gnocchi as good.
Wow.
I would say my uncle's restaurant was I'm half Sicilian, so it was
Okay.
my uncle's restaurant. The gnocchi was excellent. This was particularly good.
Wow. You ever think about going back to that town?
Yeah.
That's that restaurant?
I would go back just for the gnocchi.
Yeah, wow.
And it's a beautiful looking town, but the gnocchi is particularly
Yeah. It takes me back to our Seinfeld references. Remember, it's not Sicily, but with the Tuscany.
Oh,
Remember
yes.
where he's like, "You're telling me there's no other properties available in Tuscany?" But
there's more.
Yeah. So, brother, we're going to wind this down, land this bird, as I like to say. So what's the best way for folks to reach and get a hold of you?
Go to my websites and jump on my list. You will find my emails amuse you and educate you at the same time. And I stick with the same way. They're short and pithy and to the point.
Yeah.
And most people are amazed because why would I want to join a list? It's all going to be spam. I do things very differently, and you'll enjoy it. Plus, there's a lot of good free gifts there. There's a lot of good free downloads that help you understand the business. There's a marketing guide on there. All my training videos on there. You'll enjoy those. So
Very cool.
you can go to tomzeeb.com, TOM, Z as in zebra, EEB as in boy.com. That's the podcast is on there. A lot of training gifts. And if you go to tractionrealestatementors.com, there's an enormous amount of videos
Awesome.
And that also, there's information about my upcoming events where I am in different parts of the country. I'd love to have you join me at a Saturday event somewhere in America, because you'll learn what it takes to get started, and then hopefully you can become a great adventurer and spend time with your family. I think
Have some gnocchi.
more people, have some gnocchi. You know, the more people that spend more time with their kids, I think that's a good thing for America. I think that's a good thing for the world, and that is, I know it sounds a little schmaltzy and cheesy, but that's become my driving purpose.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for your time, brother, and thanks for coming to the studio. Really, really appreciate you.
Thanks,
for that.
Eric. Appreciate it.
All right, brother.